every entrepreneurial leader or founder, is feeling what you're saying. That we all know that it's our responsibility to figure this out. The whole sort of AI roadmap for our respective businesses. You're listening to RevOps Champions, a podcast created for B2B leaders to help you align your people, streamline your processes, trust your data, and leverage technology in order to grow your business. Joe Sandin, thanks so much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
You're the president of OnSharp.
Yep. I've been the president of OnSharp for 25 years now, coming up in June or July. I don't remember which month we started, but
wow, congrats.
Yeah, I started as a college student back in 2000 and just kept going, and here we are.
Yeah, it's amazing how time flies when you have your head down, getting things done and growing a business. And in addition to all the other personal obligations that I'm sure you have, like most other business leaders.
Yeah, 4 kids keeps you busy too. So
yeah, I only have 3, but that was busy enough. So I can only imagine how busy 4 is.
3 and 4 are about the same. Doesn't really change too much. So yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about in the office this morning how there are a few people who have 2. I was teasing one person, just wait until you have the 3rd one, and that's when everything changes.
You're right. It was the 2 to 3, and then I feel like 3 to 4, and I would guess 4. I think it kind of just becomes parent by committee at that point. So as long as you're herding them all into one direction, you're okay. So
right. And I guess we all learn we learn lessons at work that we can use at home, and I think the other way around as well, which is interesting, especially when you've been doing it for 25 years as you have.
Yep.
And Joe, and then so you run on EOS.
We do, yeah. We've been running on EOS since really the early days. So I was fortunate enough to get connected to Mike Payton early on in the Minneapolis market. So there were some guys from St. Thomas that I worked with.
Mm-hmm.
One in particular was using Mike to implement, and then I was their IT seat actually on the leadership team as a contractor. And so I got to go through the experience of EOS implementation. This is probably 2010. So I think EOS started in 08 or 09. So yeah, I've been around EOS for a long time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm guessing it's been a great help, and you'd credit a lot of the success that you've had at OnSharp to running on EOS.
Oh, for sure. And I would agree with, kind of the way Gino talks. Whether it's EOS or another system, you just need to have a system in your business that you run on. And EOS was that system for us. But just having all those components, data, people, process, all the different pieces of traction, it gives you a really nice model to know all the pieces that you need to have figured out and to feel good that you've got your bases covered. So it's been good for us, taken a long time. We're not perfect at it. Even after 15, 20 years of running on it, we still are working, hard to get it all the way through the business. I think the hard thing for us was just going from leadership team doing EOS to getting it ingrained in the whole company. That's another feat in itself, but we're still pushing and making progress even today. So
yeah. The reason I raised that also is because, one of the themes we've seen on the show over and over again is how connected process is to the stuff that both you do and that we do from a technology implementation perspective. And this is something we can dig into a little bit. I'd love to get your perspective, because what we see when we're implementing technology, if the processes aren't clear, the client doesn't have the processes clear of what it is that they're trying to help, have the technology help them be better or faster or more efficient at, the technology is not going to help, right? And you mentioned, Mike Payton, who literally wrote the book, right? Process. And yeah, we've been running on EOS since 2014, and we were invited to one of the first EOS events in Minneapolis by our bank, which is Bridgewater Bank, 2014, and we've been using EOS since. And of course, you might know this, but Mike Payton is actually the implementer for Bridgewater Bank too. So
okay, yeah.
And I've actually seen Mike's kids grow up literally across the street from me, for the last 13 years, which has been, another cool thing. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
So let's maybe dig in there. So when you're implementing technology, and I want to get into your custom portals, which seems to be a big part of what you're doing now at OnSharp.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just leave the type of technology out of it for now, because I know you've also done, HubSpot implementations like we do. what part does process play when you're implementing technology, and what are the differences between a successful technology implementation as it relates to process?
Yeah. So, I mean, you make a good point right off the bat. I think if a business doesn't know what it's doing or how it operates, it's really hard to be successful with tools and software. It's almost like the same analogy when you say garbage in, garbage out from a content perspective. It's going to be the same way on the process side. So, I think the way I see it is a lot of businesses, they want to start getting into process and be really, really complicated and detailed at the beginning. And I think you just start simple. So just like EOS, come up with your top 5 to 7, 7 to 10 processes and just document them very simply and make sure that everyone's following like the high level basics first. And then as you get going, you can just add pieces and add pieces and add pieces to it until 2, 3 years down the road, now you've matured very well into it. So I think you're right on the money there. Before you dig into a deep software implementation or change systems or start spending a lot of money moving into software tools, you really need to understand how your business operates first. You need to know, what's the OnSharp way? How do we do business? What does that look like? Because when you're clear on that, then the software piece becomes easy because now you're just matching up what you do to what the software has to do. You're not trying to like invent yourself at the same time as implementing a piece of software. That's hard to tackle both those things at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I would totally agree. And then we talk a lot about on the show as being sort of the RevOps approach, which is what we see as the layer of services or people that make technology and data actually work for a company. So once you've implemented technology, whether it's a CRM or a client portal or whatever it is, there's a layer on the revenue side of the business. So across marketing, sales, and customer service, there's a team now in many businesses that they're calling their RevOps team, which is the team essentially that makes the technology do what it was meant to do in the first place. Because as you and I know, implementing technology does not create the solution, right? It just gets you started. You then need a team of people, whether they're internal or external, who will optimize that system, the technology component and the data component. And then to your point of processes, I love the EOS approach of the 2080 approach to creating processes. You start with the 20% that are going to get you 80% of the way there, and then you iterate and add over time. But there needs to be typically a team. It's very hard for one person, but a team that is making sure that your processes are iterating, your data is iterating as it evolves, and your technology is being optimized as technology continues to evolve. And of course, it's evolving now faster than it ever has.
Yeah.
So the other component we talk about in addition to process and technology is data. How do you think about data? And you talked about garbage in, garbage out. We often talk about the data being, especially now with all the things that are going on in AI, it's under a microscope. The fact that without good, clean data, it's really, really hard to get the benefit out of technology, including now getting the benefit of AI if you don't have good, clean data. So how do you think about data when it comes to doing a technology implementation?
Well, I've always been a data guy going back to, my programming days and databases. And so I really do, I've always highly valued the structure and the cleanliness and having good data. It's just kind of like a deal breaker for me. It's like, at the end of the day, the business has to have good data to run on. So whether that's your scorecard data or your sales and marketing, your customer information, your prospect data, you kind of have to be a data junkie. And I think what's hard in a lot of businesses is maybe the visionary or the integrator or some of the, leadership team, maybe they're not super high level on the data side like that. But I feel like we've been fortunate. So I'm a technical founder. So I feel like I always have been really focused on the data and the technology and like how all that stuff works together. And then I have a really good integrator that I work with as well. Samantha, she's been with me for 12 or 13 years now. But I really think it kind of rolls down from the leadership team, at least for us, trying to create from a RevOps perspective, trying to create a culture of a company that's really focused on, okay, now that we have these systems in place, how do we monetize on top of those systems? How do we create efficiencies? How do we create, a position where we can essentially grow? It's got to come from the top down. So I try to spend most of my time in the visionary seat, really pushing our team to say, okay, we've put all these things in place. We have all this great data. Now we have to capitalize on it. We have to start implementing components that can allow us to scale now that we've built that out. So we've spent the last couple of years I think in a kind of in a phase where we're building a lot of foundational pieces at OnSharp, whether it's our CRM, our sales and marketing processes, we've spent the last probably 18 months even building like the next level of a management layer inside of our company. So for a while, being in that 25 to 35 employee range, at least for us, we were still kind of in that mode of we have leadership team and then we kind of have everybody else. And that can only work for so long. You have to start empowering more people and creating a little bit of structure so that your leadership team can truly focus on leadership team activities. We tend to get bogged down in the details maybe a little bit too much. So if you create the right people structure and you have good data and you have good software, then it's just all about rallying that team together and just starting to move forward on getting those pieces put in place. So
no, absolutely. Okay, so now that we've covered I guess the one thing we haven't talked about, but every time I speak to a leader and we talk about the four components of a successful and increasingly efficient sort of RevOps component to your business. And even if you don't call it RevOps, it's knowing that there is somebody who is taking care of optimizing your marketing, sales, and customer service, right? So we talked about technology, data, and process. And of course, the fourth and most important component is the people, right?
Yep.
And sometimes we go really deep into the people piece because it is the most important, because without people, you cannot do any of this stuff. And, every leader, whether you run an EOS or any other system or a no system, will tell you that the people are the most important component of their business. Mm-hmm. So I like to make sure we acknowledge the fact that none of this can be done without people. But then I think everybody listening to the show also understands that. So we don't really need to go into too much detail on the people side unless there is something that you'd like to talk about from a people perspective.
No, I mean, I think from a people perspective, my first focus was I have to get a leadership team in place because as a founder of a business, I think what you can get stuck in is deeply running that company forever and really it just being a job that you're trapped in. So my first focus from a people side was I've got to let go. I've got to delegate. I've got to get out of the middle of stuff and I got to let people execute and trust them to do stuff. We all make mistakes. They're going to figure stuff out. So from the people side, I kind of started at that level. Like I don't want to have to, this business has to allow Joe Sandin to be gone for a week or two or a month and like not skip a beat. And then secondly, when you talk about AI and people and mixing all the efficiencies together, to me, it's about take people out of the process when they don't need to be there, but then inject people into your business when it really can make it like add that extra little special flair to it. So it's just all about finding the right mix of like, where do people need to be? Where do they not need to be? How can we use AI and technology just to be more efficient and things that are repeatable and easy, try to take the people out of it so that they can focus on the things that really create the X factor in your business.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that. Joe, so from what I can gather, the custom portals that you're building for clients it seems like a big part of what you're currently focused on. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, that is our focus. And it's, we historically haven't talked in that language, but, we looked back at everything we've done over all these years. And it was kind of a reflection of like, really, most of what we build is a portal of some kind. It's some kind of, whether it's for customers or it's employees or partners, or most of what we do for our clients is like helping them get information and get services out to an audience of people. And so we really just kind of changed the way we talk and describe what we do and what we build, because when you build custom software, it's, they talk like the analogies, like you're selling vapor, like we don't have a hard, tangible product that we sell. I mean, we can give examples of what we've done. At the end of the day, we're not selling a software subscription per se. So it really felt like talking more in the portal conversation and helping people understand how we help connect people to create efficiencies in your business and grow revenue. That I think that just resonates and helps people understand better what we do.
Right. So for those, listening or watching who don't know what a custom portal is, how would you describe a custom portal?
So, I mean, a custom portal is just building an interface that allows you and your customer, or whatever audience is, to transact and do business and communicate. So again, whether that's a customer portal so that they can update information, view quotes, shop, e-commerce, purchase product, service, could be project management. I mean, it's just a way to connect people. So, I mean, I think at the fundamental side of it, it's helping customers or helping our customers, our businesses, be more efficient and just use technology to better serve their clients.
Hmm. And then you also, I know you talk about the fact that there are portals or dashboards that are built by a lot of companies off the shelf, like, HubSpot would be one example.
Mm-hmm.
At what point in your experience do you see businesses wanting something that is some where an off the shelf portal or dashboard is just not going to do it for them?
Yeah, most of our clients, they have their internal systems. They have a CRM, they have accounting software, they have all these different like foundational pieces that they run the business on. And then it always seems like these systems try to have maybe a portal piece that can do some of that exposing information to the customer, to the partner, whoever the audience is, but they don't, that's not their focus. They're trying to be the internal tool. So a lot of times it's about, finding the off the shelf stuff might be hard because it doesn't integrate all the systems that they want to integrate together. Maybe it can do a couple of them, but then it doesn't integrate with a few others that they use. So a lot of what we're doing is connecting the dots. We're using APIs to bring, again, it's all about the data. You've got your data in all these places, and maybe it's kind of fine where it exists and it works well there, but like you need to bring it all into one place to really give the customer the full experience that they're looking for. I mean, I've been in situations too as a consumer where it's like, oh, to do one thing, I got to jump over into this login, and to do something else with that business, I got to jump over here. So it's all about creating a more seamless experience for the customer. And that's what drives a lot of our clients that come to us to build something that's custom for their audience, is they want it to feel more seamless. They want something to differentiate themselves. So when you do build something that's custom to you, it does give you a differentiator. So
interesting. And are there certain industries for which custom portals, from your perspective, are a better fit, or is it more based on company size? What are the factors for those listening who might be intrigued by the idea of having a custom portal? What are the criteria that they should consider, if it might be something of interest to them to consider?
I always think the biggest criteria is, are you creating value? Are you gaining efficiency internally? So whether you have 100 customers total, or whatever industry in, or you have 1 million customers, if you look at your internal processes and you can say, wow, we're spending way too much time, maybe it's on the phone, or like doing things in an inefficient way with that audience, or there's things that they're asking for that we just can't give them because our technology doesn't allow us to, then I think you're a good candidate for looking at something more custom. It's about efficiency. Like I'm really big on measuring the tangible effectiveness of implementing something. So you might be able to look at it and say, oh, that would be kind of nice and cool and great and all, but it wouldn't really change much. It wouldn't really save us much money, or wouldn't really help us gain more revenue. Then I'd say maybe you shouldn't be worrying about it. Maybe you have bigger fish to fry in your business right now. So I think you just have to sit down as a business and say, do we feel like we have areas where we can become more efficient internally, reduce costs, or do we think that by implementing something we could help grow to the next level, increase our revenue? To me, those are always the two biggest drivers of a decision like that.
Okay. And then industry doesn't really come into play?
I mean, we have industries we focus on. We do a lot in manufacturing. We do a lot in agriculture. We've done banking and finance work, medical. I mean, I don't think industry matters because there's people in every industry, right? I mean, you're interacting with people no matter what industry you're in for the most part. So there's always room for improvement.
Right.
If you are interacting with your customer, then there's always an opportunity for a portal to help you either be more efficient or grow revenue through that portal.
And then from your clients, like if you look at your clients, like is there a certain size that the client is where this becomes more likely that they would consider? In other words, are they a business of 250 people or 500 people or 1,000 people or 100 people? Because at what point do business leaders or company leaders start considering a custom, option versus something that's off the shelf, I guess, maybe is the way to think about it.
Yeah. So I think when you're smaller, maybe under 500 employees, it's maybe a little tougher to justify putting a lot of development effort into a custom portal. So you might look for something more off the shelf. Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, we do have some clients that are, we have some publicly traded companies we've worked with that have millions of customers, and we're building custom interfaces. Again, they're really trying to have something that's their X factor that nobody else has from an experience perspective. I would say most of our client range falls probably between 500 and 2,000 employees.
Okay.
In terms of their company size, but most of them have a big enough audience that they're serving, that they have enough of an internal team that has to serve that audience, that there's a lot of efficiency to gain internally by allowing those people to be more efficient. and then revenue opportunity to increase revenues with that customer base and cross-sell different products or services and those kind of things. Just capitalize on existing client opportunity versus, prospecting and finding new customers. So,
and I'm really intrigued by this. So in what percentage of situations where you're building a custom portal for a client of yours, are you integrating or pulling data from both the front end of the business, so the CRM, as well as the back end, whether it's an ERP or a financial system? Are those two always involved or not necessarily?
Most of the time. Yeah. I mean, if you're really building a full-fledged portal that does multiple things, we're typically pulling from multiple systems in that business and connecting data together. Yeah.
And does that custom portal in that case, does that become the single source of truth for that business then?
No, not typically. I mean, we're not typically changing their source of truth. So we're not changing the truth in the accounting system, the truth in the CRM or the ERP. We're typically creating a layer to the outside that empowers them to transact and communicate and interact with those customers in a way that they just weren't able to do before, and then make it be efficient. I mean, so many businesses might create a portal, for example, but it has zero connectivity or very little connectivity back into the internal system. So then they have all this extra overhead of trying to synchronize data manually, or people have to make manual entry. And so when we do these projects, our goal is, and this is where we're kind of the data junkies and with our technical background, I always say we've seen every ugly database you could ever imagine. Like there's no system we can't find a way to talk back and forth to it. And we've just had a lot of experience having to work with old systems, new systems, and everything in between.
Okay. No, that's really helpful. So for, let's just say, businesses that are under 500 employees who are more likely still to be using an off-the-shelf solution, and a lot of people listening will be familiar with HubSpot. Which of the HubSpot hubs would be the most likely one that you would use as an off-the-shelf portal? Or, is it the whole HubSpot product, or would it be Service Hub, or is it Ops Hub, or is it something, or is it just the CRM?
I feel like you're leading me into what I want you to ask.
Oh, okay, good.
We've been using HubSpot for a long time, and my biggest issue, to this point has been the only real customer interface they give you is through Service Hub, through ticketing. So if you're using HubSpot Service Hub and you're doing your ticketing, they do have a portal you can turn on that allows you to interact with your client just for tickets. So like my customer, if I create a login for them, they could see their open tickets, submit tickets, and do that basic stuff. But ticketing is just one little piece of the entire picture of a business, right? You've got all the other components of a business where, like, to me, if my customers are going to sign into a portal, I want to show them a lot more than ticketing. And I want to give them a lot more opportunity to understand our services and transact with us. And, it could be invoicing, it could be quoting, it could be, we do web hosting. So like seeing their service contracts with us. So we've actually been building a new product that we call Core that integrates directly with HubSpot. So we're building a portal that we feel is much more in line with what a HubSpot company would want to give to their customers. So it'll do ticketing just like the HubSpot ticketing portal does, but we're also building Core to expose a lot of other HubSpot components out to the customer so that they have a more holistic experience.
Okay.
And then it's seamless. They just have to connect up their HubSpot account and configure how they want it to work. And then everything just is locked and loaded and ready to go. All the data synchronizes, all the components are enabled, and it'll be a pretty fun product for us to push forward with. So
cool. And what is the timing on that?
We are really probably within 30 to 45 days of getting a first kind of a beta version out there. We've got a small group of customers we're going to pilot with just to get some initial feedback and make sure we're on the right track, but very, very soon here. So we actually have a separate website called coreportal.io. So we're still looking, obviously, for more businesses too that might want to be in that pilot program. So I invite people to check it out.
Yeah. And again, so for your new exciting core product that's coming out here soon, what would you say, does that bring your custom, and I'm starting to think already, it sounds a lot like a customer portal versus a custom portal, right? Or it's a custom customer portal.
Correct. Yep.
Is that bringing that down to maybe businesses that are under 500 employees?
Exactly. So there's a lot of companies that use HubSpot that are smaller that want great portal functionality. They just can't afford to build it themselves. And they want it simple. There's a lot of tools out there that, I as a technical person, there are some tools out there that can allow you to build a portal and that you could connect up your HubSpot account. But you got to spend, months of work, and you have to have technical background to build the thing out. Our goal is to just create something that I can sign up for and have up and running in 10 minutes. So that's one of the big benefits of our core product, is just simple and easy, and just helping you get to market fast with something.
Really interesting. Yeah, no, I'll definitely check that out. And I'm sure a lot of people who are going to be, listening or watching this episode are going to be checking it out too. So then let's maybe take a half step back to what are the main reasons that businesses reach out to you or introduce to you and then eventually start working with you? What are the big business problems that they're trying to solve?
It's something with sharing data with an audience. It's normally, hey, I want to build an app that allows me to do this or that with my customer, or I want to build a web portal. That's where I was kind of reflecting earlier when we look back at all the work we've done over 20 years. A lot of what we do is we just help people connect through technology. And so most of the new businesses, or even our existing clients that come to us, they just have there's always people in the middle of the problem. It's always, we need a better way to share or transact with a certain audience. Again, whether that's like in agriculture, a lot of times we build portals where there's an implement, and they've got dealers, and they want to be able to communicate better with the dealers and deal with warranty issues that dealers are reporting. And so it's always a matter of transacting information back and forth with an audience. And how do we do that efficiently and just make it so that we, a lot of companies are trying to figure out, how do we not have to hire another 10 people in our support team? How can we stick with the team that we have and just be more efficient so that we can continue to scale with the team that we have in place?
Which of course leads everyone who's hearing you say that, think about, how is AI going to impact all this, right? And I'm guessing you're going to be building, or at least have the ability to build, AI into your new core platform.
Yeah, we, in our first iteration, we're not really tackling AI quite yet. It's very tough as a founder and an entrepreneur who's used to getting their hands dirty. It is very hard to kind of sit back and let the process play itself out, because, if I had my way, I'd work 24 hours a day and I'd be the old-fashioned Joe Sandin and crank something out as fast as I could. But we need to get to market kind of with our initial MVP, prove that we have product market fit, and then we'll take time to understand, okay, how does AI play into this properly? In my time looking at AI, there's a lot of great stuff out there. There's a lot of hype. You got to kind of like sift your way through it and understand, okay, what's really going to move the needle? What's going to really stay for the long term here? My wife, for example, runs an estate planning law firm in Fargo, and she's been doing that for a long time. And I help her a lot with technology. I'm doing some AI stuff with her right now to help her understand, okay, how can you be more efficient in the whole legal process and use AI to be, there's so many great implementations of AI. I just want to be careful though how we integrate it into the product. You can spend a lot of time in software development going down some track that doesn't prove to be a very good feature, or nobody really adopts it. So, I want to be a good steward of our time and make sure that we get something out to market first, and then listen to what our audience and what our customers are asking for before we just jump on the AI ship and start shipping a bunch of stuff nobody really ends up using.
So you're building and heading towards the beta for core so you don't feel like there's demand from the ideal client or customer who will be using core. They don't currently have a need for AI, but it's something that you might or could add over time.
Oh, I think there's some obvious need, like with chatbots, and there's some pieces. So the nice thing with our product being something that integrates with HubSpot, through the HubSpot API, there's a lot of AI components that we can kind of like flow through and carry into the portal experience. So again, chat would be a great example. So there will be pieces that we will quickly put in there that are kind of, I think, proven at this point. But I think there's still more to learn in terms of, what the customer asks for once they start using it. And I'm really trying hard to stay MVP with the initial rollout, which is tough to do, but I think it's important.
Yes, it is. It is tough. I think every entrepreneurial leader or founder, is feeling what you're saying. That we all know that it's our responsibility to figure this out, the whole sort of AI roadmap for our respective businesses. But at the same time, you got to kind of pace it. And I guess the advice that I keep getting and then therefore giving, because I'm seeing that firsthand, is use very specific use cases in your business that can be solved by AI. Start there, and then just, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier about the 2080 process from EOS is, again, just start with those specific use cases that make up probably less than 20% of what AI will eventually impact. But start there, and you will learn, as you go. And it's also a great way to get, again, to your point, the people using AI, slowly and adopting it over time versus feeling like they have to start using it all tomorrow kind of thing. And where it's very far from being fully baked.
Yeah, and it's like anything in business. I mean, AI is no different than other things that have kind of came around the corner at 120 miles an hour at everyone's face. Like, people are people. Like, change is hard. People resist change. I think in a business, when you got a bunch of employees, like, you got to be careful not to like flip the table upside down and rock the boat too much. So, I mean, you got to be deliberate about, okay, let's take this one piece at a time. I think a lot of people right now are just like worried about falling behind with AI. And I understand that. I mean, I work pretty hard and my team works pretty hard to like research and stay on top of things. But at the end of the day, like, business is business, and proven things will always be the proven things that you got to have done right in the company. So don't freak out. Just kind of take on one piece at a time. As long as you're making progress, as long as you're putting one foot in front of the other, you're going to get there. So, I mean,
yeah,
if you move too fast, you might make a bunch of mistakes, and then you got to take 10 steps backwards and unwind a bunch of stuff. I mean, that's probably more painful than just moving a little more methodically from the beginning. So,
right. So you mentioned something there, which we've seen a huge increase in demand in our technology implementations over the last year. And part of it is maybe somewhat impacted by AI, but I think it's really more impacted by, as the HubSpot product has become that so much more robust, and there are so many larger companies now using HubSpot as their CRM or as their customer platform. The companies that we're working with and have been working with over the last year specifically that are sort of 500 employees plus, the need for change management has just skyrocketed. Where, so, when you're doing an implementation for a company that's 100 people or less, there still has to be change management and training to maximize adoption of whatever the technologies that you're implementing. But as we've felt this, and you obviously work with a lot of larger companies as well, the need for change management as part of the implementation has become so much more obvious to us. Have you noticed that same trend?
Oh, for sure. I mean, and we've always been big proponents of, like, when we do whether we build a website or a portal or any technology project, like including training components into that, and including, like, even think about process. Like, a lot of businesses like to jump in and build something new, and then they forget to go back and update their process documentation, and they forget to train people on how to do it. Like, you can't skip those steps. So whenever you're implementing you're implementing HubSpot, or you're adding a new hub, or you're adding a portal, you have to stop and say, okay, how is this changing the way we operate, and who needs to understand how to do this? And we got to make sure that everyone moves along and is consistent together. Because if you're not good at that, then what ends up happening is the customer experience becomes kind of like sporadic. Like, I think the worst thing in a company is, like, if 10 different customers interacted with you and they would all explain they got a different experience. Like, that's not good. Like, you need to maintain consistency. So you've got a budget for the training side, the process documentation, updating, like making sure that your business, is ready to actually move forward with this new tool.
Right. And then, do you or any of your clients use any specific change management framework or process?
I'm not totally aware of that, so I'm not great to answer that question. We have some pretty simple, like, as far as our like EOS process documentation, my integrator kind of handles all that. I think we just use a very simple documentation structure for that, like a wiki or something like that.
Right.
I'm not great to answer that question, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking also more like, do any of your clients, so the larger companies that you work with, do they have internal change management folks who are making sure that, whatever you're implementing is successful?
Yeah, for sure our larger clients do, whether it's a product manager or somebody that's going to work with the team to make sure that the audience that they're building a portal for is going to understand how to use it, and then understanding how like internal customer service teams and representatives are going to understand how to use those tools as well. So yeah, that would be a for sure on the larger companies. I think, with smaller businesses, it's a little tougher because you probably don't have as much budget to allocate, permanent resources to those kind of things. So
Yeah,
those end
yeah,
up kind of falling on other people's plates to coordinate a little more loosely together.
right. Yeah, yeah. We started using again about a year ago the framework from a company called ProSci,
Okay.
PROSCI. So they're one of the leading change management companies out there who've created a framework that they call ADKAR, ADKAR. And again, I'm just seeing so much demand for that kind of sort of next level change management. So we have one person on our team that's their full-time role, and she's certified by ProSci in change management and is working on all the sort of more complex implementations and then sort of ongoing clients that we work with to make sure that their systems are continuously optimized.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think we'll be doubling down on that, because I think change, to your point, the changes that we saw 25 years ago, and then again, 15 years ago, and what we're seeing now, there's a lot of things are the same, but also there's a few things that are different, and one of those is the velocity of the change.
Yeah.
So the whiplash for a lot of our teams, when I say our team, so the team, our own teams or our clients' teams, the whiplash is a lot greater, I think, now than it was, in the 2000s and then the 2010s. There was, technology's just been, the velocity of how it's evolving is increasing, right?
Everything moves way quicker because information moves way quicker in today's world than it did, 30 years ago. So
Yeah,
expectations are much higher.
right. Which is why I really believe change management is because, if you it doesn't matter who you speak to, who's, running a SaaS business or professional services firms like ourselves that are implementing technology, adoption is the key metric, because
Mm-hmm.
if the technology, whatever the technology is not adopted by the company who made the investment in that technology, then it'll be a failed, investment. So the question comes back to, well, then what leads to adoption? And ultimately it comes, what we've boiled it down to is that there are multiple components, but the most critical one is the change management piece.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to make sure that we and our clients are incorporating, to your earlier point, where it doesn't matter. Smaller businesses now are going to start thinking about how do we make sure we invest in change management.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, yeah. Also, just a side note, you talked about your wife's law business. Have you checked out Harvey.ai?
It sounds familiar, but I can't remember. What exactly does it do?
Yeah, well, check it out. It's domain specific AI for law firms and professional services providers. I mean, and it is, I think, targeted at Fortune 500, but I'm pretty sure they'll be coming downstream fairly soon, and then was worth mentioning because
Sure.
I think every category of professional services, whether it's law firms or accounting firms, law firms probably more so, are going to be the ones that make the investment. I think are going to benefit a lot from what's happening in AI.
Yep.
And I think we're seeing it even as a professional services business. It was really hard to scale without just adding headcount. We all know and see that changing.
Well, that's my wife's biggest issue, I think, in her estate planning firm is there's just not a lot of younger estate planning talent out there. So like to grow her estate planning firm has just been very difficult. And so then it becomes an exercise of, okay, well then based on the team we have and knowing it's going to be hard to scale people, how do we just become as efficient as we can be and really maximize our time and give ourselves the tools we need to do the best job we can for the client based on the resources that we have. So that's kind of, it's always fun to work with your significant other, obviously, in a work setting. So I've enjoyed that, but just kind of helping dig in and So whether it's AI, and I've been playing around with some low code, no code tools. It's been fun for me. So, and I mean, I grew up in the early 2000s as a founder. And so kind of right as I feel like things were kind of starting to get more sophisticated in the early 2000s and kind of maturing out of those early days of the internet. And now it's to a whole new level. And I haven't, gotten my hands super dirty with code for a long time. So it's interesting to go back into some of these technologies and actually see how much you can accomplish without having to write code. I mean, so many of these things I look at and I'm like, wow, how many thousands of lines of code would I have had to write in the old days to accomplish that? And now it might be done in 10 lines of code, or it's just provided as a SaaS service for $10 a month. It's just crazy to me. So,
yeah. But I think, again, having your ground knowledge of knowing code makes it so much easier to use the low code, no code tools, right?
Well, yeah. And just, I think a lot of people in business, this is where I feel bad. Like having a technical background. I understand what's possible. I understand what's hard. I understand what's easy. It's tough when you don't have much of a technical background to not be able to understand if what you want is expensive or cheap or should be hard or should be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always, I just think as a founder, it's always good to just brush up as much as you can, become as technical as you can be. I know everyone kind of has their level of what they're willing to go to, but the more technical you can try to be as a founder or just anyone in a business, you're just going to be more powerful and just have more at your disposal. So this world's changing fast right now. So
yeah, and I'm fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with a lot of successful entrepreneurs, including many who really don't feel very comfortable technically. And I guess, and if there are any of those, listening, one of the best books I've read in the last 2 years is called Who, Not How, which is also very much, it's by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. This is also related to a lot of where sort of Gino Wickman learned a lot of his stuff that he used to create EOS. And you alluded to this already a few times. One person cannot be good at everything. So you figure out what your unique strengths are, and then you build a team of people who have the strengths that you're missing in order to be successful. And I think for any leaders, especially if the president or the CEO of a company where everyone's looking to you for sort of the technical direction from an AI perspective, and you don't feel that that's an area that you're strong, then find somebody, whether it's a permanent resource or an external part-time resource who sort of acts as your chief, whether it's your CTO or chief AI officer, whatever you want to call them, but somebody who can translate the technical opportunities for you, because you still understand your business better than anybody else. You just need to make sure you have that, what we call your who, in this case, that sort of technical partner who can translate the human and business part from the technology part and still make it happen, even if you don't have the technical background and strength.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard to do it all. I mean, we all have our unique thing that we're best at, and one of the best things you can do is just surround yourself with good people that complement the skills that you maybe don't have or the things you're not great at, and then that's how you build a good business. I mean, there's
absolutely
Samantha, our integrator, Jake, our leader of sales, Joe Hickson, who runs our operations. Like, they have very unique skills that I am terrible at, and I knew that from the beginning. So
right.
It's good to be able to be self-aware of when you need to kind of hand a baton off to somebody else and be okay with that. You don't have to be, the number one guy at everything. So
yeah. I mean, we use the African proverb at least once a week around here, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I like that. Yeah.
And I think it's most useful for entrepreneurs like us, because we have to remind ourselves that if we just go, there's only so far we can go on our own.
And that's such a great analogy, because there's many times where I think, man, if I was just by myself right now, I could be moving twice as fast. But then I instantly think, but I sure wouldn't get very far down the road. I would run out of gas at some point, and then I would be stuck, right? So we need the collective whole of the entire team to get us to the long-term vision of where we're going. So
business is a team sport, as I like to remind myself every day. Joe, any sort of parting advice that you have for anyone listening? Again, so if you think, whether it's a lot of people listening would be familiar with HubSpot, but they're definitely familiar with the the benefits of having a CRM, and especially a CRM that's integrated, with all your other technology, so that you have good data flow and therefore have access to real-time accurate data. So you, as a leader, you can make really good, fast decisions based on accurate data. What advice would you leave our audience with?
Not totally in line with that, but I think the advice that I like to give the most is, like, I look back at my journey. It's been 25 years and I still feel like a startup. Like, I get up in the morning and I still feel like we just started this business yesterday. So my advice to people, just be patient with yourself. I think there's so much pressure on social media and just generally in today's world that you have to go from like 0 to hero in like 6 months. And I just don't believe that. Like,
no.
Might you get lucky and that turns out to be your destiny? Maybe. But like, slow and steady wins the race. There's nothing wrong with, I spent the first 13 years of OnSharp just trying to get to the $1 million in revenue mark. So I just think people, like founders, be patient with yourself, get a mentor. Like, don't try to go alone and make every decision on your own. Like, try to cut down on the mistakes. Like, I love to mentor people as best I can. I'm not an expert at everything, but I do my best to share the mistakes I've made so other people don't have to make them. But get a mentor, be patient. And as long as you're putting one foot in front of the other and you're making progress, you'll get there. Don't feel like you've got to, follow suit with all this pressure to, build the next great $1 billion company in 2 years or whatever it is. A lot of great businesses are built slow and steady.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really good advice. I think for a lot of people at any level of business or organization, the sooner you stop comparing yourself to others, the happier you'll be, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Just be the next best version of you from last week. Just use yourself as your comparison. That's it.
Exactly. And Joe, what about book recommendations? Do you have any books that you really like? Maybe that you've read recently, or books that you tend to read maybe more than once?
Well, I read Traction every year just to continue to refresh on all the little details. So that's an obvious one. I just read the SaaS Playbook. We're trying to become more of a product-based company over time. So I did just read through that. And then, there was another one I'm blanking on it. But I'm really trying to figure out, I've spent a lot of time in the service-based business, hunting and killing and kind of living in the consulting world. And I'm really excited to kind of move us more towards SaaS and software and building recurring revenue. So that's kind of where my focus is right now, is like understanding how to do that. What are the right metrics to follow, learning from others, mistakes they've made, successes they've had, and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, very cool. Yeah, no, I look forward to following that journey as you do that, because I know you're not the only leader of a professional services firm who would love to have a product-based business.
Yep. And it's tough. It's getting tougher because with all the advancements in AI and development tools, more people can jump into the mix way easier. The barrier to entry is very small. It's really getting tiny at this point. So
sure,
it's going to be challenging. I think that's where great ideas and great execution is going to come into play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, it's like you were saying, just no matter how low the barrier to entry is, you still got to do the hard work. And again, it's all about progress, right? Not perfection.
Yep.
I think that's really good advice. Joe, well, thanks so much for joining me today. It was really good to connect. And I look forward to following your success from here on out for the next 25 years.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Did you enjoy this episode?
Find more at RevOpsChampions.com.